मह्यम पदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवादि श्री गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। शृण्वतां सकथा कृष्णा पुण्य श्रवण कीर्तनम हृदयन्तस्व भद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्। सर्वशास्त्रादि पीयूष सर्ववैदिक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाध्या सर्वलोकैकदृक्प्रद सर्वभागवत प्राणा श्रीमद्भागवतो प्रभु कलिध्वंसोतितादित्या श्रीकृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेम वर्ष अक्षराय ते सर्वद सर्वसेवाय श्रीकृष्णाय नमोस्तुते। मद एक बंधु मद संगीन मद गुरुन् मद महानन मन निस्तारक मन भाग्य मन आनंद नमोस्तुते। असाधु साधु तादाइन अति नीच ताकर हा ना मुंचा कदाचिन माम प्रेम न हृत कंथयो स्पुरः। ग्रंथराज भागवतम की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। So Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. So, so- okay, so would anyone like to start off by saying where are we in the Srimad Bhagavatam? Like which aspect, up to what point in the creation have we come?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. I come back from the India.
Welcome back, Mati.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Would anyone like to mention anything? Where are we in our entire process of creation? Okay, so a quick review. So what we discussed, last class, we in chapter 5, basically, we completed chapter 5 in the last session. So what we did basically is the Maitreya Rishi is actually explaining to Vidura, and Vidura has asked about the Purusha avatars, and then Maitreya Rishi starts off by describing that who is the Purusha avatars. It starts off with Karandaksha Vishnu. So starting with Karandaksha Vishnu, he actually went through how there's an aspect of time and the jivas and how the jivas are impregnated into, first of all, there's a pradhan, and then when the three modes of material nature start agitation, then that becomes the Mahatattva, the Mahatattva in Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamogun, and predominantly that Mahatattva which is in Sattvagun gets transformed by the effect of time into Tamogun. And then that actually becomes Ahankar. Right? So Mahatattva in Tamogun is the Ahankar, and the Ahankar we have three, Ahankar in mode of goodness, Ahankar in mode of passion, Ahankar in mode of ignorance, and then these three lead to Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti. So Dravya Shakti is basically on the Tanmatras, like the five gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether. Kriya Shakti is basically the pran, and then the 10 senses, intelligence, and then the uh, Jnana Shakti are all basically the demigods, right? The demigods, the mind and the 10 sense devatas. So we discussed all this point, and then we came to the point, like in the second canto, when we are discussing this entire section, when we come to this point, then the creation is further explained. We continue with what we are going to discuss today in chapter number 6. But in this chapter, because Vidura has asked Maitreya Rishi to describe this creation, but add the sweetness of Krishna, right? So in relationship to that, Maitreya Rishi, coming to this point, he actually stops and then he mentions the prayers of different demigods, right? So the demigods, so we came up to the aspect that all these controlling deities of the different elements, they were created, but they were unable to perform their creative functions. And why was that? Because they were disunited in purpose, right? Disunited in purpose. So hence all these demigods controlling the elements, right? They actually offered prayers to the Lord. So last class we discussed these prayers in detail. And very beautiful prayers. And the theme of the prayers, they start off with, they praise the lotus feet of the Lord. How the lotus feet of the Lord is like an umbrella where under which everyone can take shelter, right? They start off with that. And then they talk about how the lotus feet is full of knowledge. And it is from this lotus feet that the Ganges actually emanates. And just by bathing in the Ganges, all our sinful reactions are washed away. Right? And then just by meditating on the lotus feet, it reveals knowledge, detachment, it awards one remembrance, courage, and so on, right? And then finally, their prayers. Their main objective for praying is that we are disunited. So please empower us, enlighten us, so that we can actually continue this process of creation. Okay, so that's where we came. Now, so the demigods prayed because they were disunited in the purpose, right? They could not do their creative function. Now in this chapter, we'll see how Karanodakshaya Vishnu, when he hears these prayers of the demigods, what does he actually do? Okay. Everyone is with me? Any questions or comments up to this point? So where are we if you think of the creation? Karanodakshaya Vishnu, he's actually, he breathes out these elements, right? Mahatattva, etc. Now, we discussed that how these elements, so there are 23 elements totally, right? So there's the Mahatattva, Ahankar, right? And the 5 Tanmatras, 5 gross elements, and then the 11 senses. So all these elements are there, 23 elements, but they are in unmixed state. Right? They are in unmixed. Now, when the demigods have prayed to Karanodakshaya Vishnu, then there's a chance these elements will start mixing, right? But how will that mixing actually happen? When the energy of the Lord enters into these elements. So that's how this chapter actually starts. Okay? So up to this point, 23 elements are manifested, but they are unmixed state. Now we'll see how the mixing actually happens. So at this point, when they are unmixed, is the we call it fetus, we'll come to that. But the golden egg, has that actually formed at this point? No, it's not formed, right? So that's what we'll read now. Okay. Everyone's okay with me? Any questions up to this point? We understand where are we in the creation? Karanodakshaya Vishnu, all these elements have come out, but they are not mixed. So the golden egg is not yet formed. They have prayed, they have prayed that, okay, elements have formed, and then we have manifested, form your body, right? The bodies of the demigods were given by the Lord himself, but we cannot actually act. No. We'll see how the action actually happens. Right? Okay, so let me just quickly go do an overview of this chapter. One way in this chapter, like the first, okay, let's see. So first 10 verses, you can see my screen? Right. Okay, so first 10 verses, we'll see form these unmixed 23 elements, how they start interacting, and then how Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then finally the universal form is actually manifested. So all that is the first 10 verses. From 11 to 26, we'll explain the starting theme of these verses, but then we can quickly go through all these verses. You know, if you understand the theme of this, how anyway, we'll come to that. So 11 to 26, we can quickly go through. Then 27 to 34, it talks of like how the different varnas are manifested, different planetary systems, very much similar to how in Canto 2, Chapter 5, he talks of how the different senses are actually manifested. And then in 2.5, after that, he actually says how the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, they are manifested. Right? So similarly here. And then the last section of this is 35 to 40, where Maitreya Muni is describing all this, but then he's saying, feeling like, I'm so unworthy. How can I describe the glories of the Lord? Right? So he expresses his inability to describe the glories of the Lord. But then still he continues. Why? And that we'll read in those prayers. Right? Okay, so this is chapter number 6. So we'll complete chapter 6 today. Okay. Everyone okay?
I just had a question. When
Yeah.
you said golden egg, you mean universes?
Yeah, universes, yes.
So like Karnadaksha Vishnu, they come from his pores, right? The universes and his breathing.
Yeah, but you know, when the elements come out, first of all, they are unmixed. So even for the universes to form, that is actually a process which we'll read now. In the first 10 verses, we'll read that. Right? So let's read that. And then after the first 10 verses, if you still have the question, then we will come to it. So right now, the elements, like what are the 23 elements? Right? We start off with Mahatattva, then Ahankar, right? Then 5 Tanmatras, right? Then the 11 senses, including a mind, right? So 23. So those are 23 elements, but they are not mixed. Right? Okay. So let's start with text number 1. And okay, so let's go ahead. Text 1, chapter 6.
Rishir iti tasam swashaktinam satinam asametya saha prasupta loka tantranam nishamya gatim ishvaraha.
Hare Krishna, the Rishi Maitreya said, the Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of his potencies, such as Mahatattva.
Right. So basically it is saying here that iti, thus, right? So after all the demigods have offered, these demigods of the different elements, they have offered their prayers. After offering these prayers, then what they say? Iti tasam swashaktina, right? His own potency, right? So how are all these 23 elements created? By his own potency, right? So by his own potency, they are created, but they are what? Asametya. Asametya means they are actually without combination. So 23 elements are created, but they are uncombined. Asametya. And then after that, Saha, so he, who is he? Who is he here? Up to this point, who's even there?
Karnadaksha Vishnu.
Karnadaksha Vishnu. So he, Karnadaksha Vishnu, Prasupta, he saw that all these are one way suspended. That means they are not active, right? They are not active. Then what did he do? Seeing that they are not active, Nishamya Gatim Ishvaraha. So seeing that, what did he do? So that's basically, he basically in this verse is saying that how he noticed or he saw this or he heard that how all the progressive creative functions are suspended, right, because of non-combination of these potencies. So it's interesting to see the word prasupta. Where do we hear a similar word? Prasupta. Anyone knows Prasupta? Prasupti? So actually for the Jiva also, there's 4 states of our consciousness. One of them is Prasupti. Prasupti means deep sleep. So if you see that word Sanskrit, Prasupti is actually deep sleep. So similarly here, when you say Prasupti, they are suspended. There is no activity. So you can see a similar Sanskrit word here. So let's see. Right. So that's basically verse number 1. So we'll continue. Text 2. Everyone's okay with me? Okay. Text 2.
Kala sangyam tada devim bibrach chaktim urukramaha trayo vimshati tatvanam ganam yugapad avishat.
The Supreme Powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into the 23 elements with the goddess Kali, his external energy, who alone amalgamates all the different elements.
So who is entering now? The Lord actually enters through his coercive energy. We talked about that point. But now we see Kala Samgyam, right? So the Kala Shakti, which is known as Kali, right? Particularly it says Devim. So Tada, at that time, the Devi, Kali, right? That goddess Kali, which is actually the aspect of time, right? And then what does time have? Time has the potency of Vibrita Shakti. Vibrita Shakti means destructive potency. If you see anything in this material world, right? Because everything in this material world is subjected to the aspect of time, everything goes through a cycle which ends in destruction. So the entire anything material you see comes into existence, stays for some time, produces byproducts, decays, dies. It's all because of the influence of time. So hence is Kali, Devi Kali, the time aspect is actually known as Bibrita Shakti, is destructive potency. And Urukramaha is very powerful, right? So very powerful. So Lord himself, through his potency as Kali, the goddess Kali, is actually Yugapat Avishat. Avishat means he entered simultaneously into Traya Vimshati Tatvanam. Traya means what? 3. Vimshati, 23. 23 Tatvanam, 23 Tattvas. Right? So simultaneously, this energy has entered into the 23 elements. Okay. So, right. So 23 elements, Prabhupada makes a point. They are all combined together by the influence of time. And again, because of the influence of time, they will be dissolved at due course of time. And this energy is known as Kali or the destructive potency, right? Okay. So that's basically that part. And then Prabhupada quotes from the Brahma Samhita. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll just look at a few verses from Brahma Samhita, which actually talks about this process that we are actually discussing right now. So, sharing screen. Okay. Yeah. Okay, you can see my screen? Yes. Okay. So this is text number 14. Let's start. I just selected few verses of the Brahma Samhita relevant to our conversation right now. So text 14 of Brahma Samhita, where it actually says that same Mahavishnu, right? Who is that Mahavishnu? Karundaksha Vishnu. He enters into each universe, right, as his own separate subjective portions. The divine portions that entered into each universe are possessed of his majestic extension. They are the eternal universal soul, Mahavishnu, possessing thousands and thousands of heads. So what is this aspect? We'll be actually discussing further that how from this Karundaksha Vishnu, after entering through the time potency, and then he actually enters into each universe. And then he manifests the form which possesses thousands and thousands of heads. Which is that form? That is a gigantic Virat Rupa, or the universal form, right? So that is the aspect that is mentioned here. And in the purport, it says, Bhakti Sansai Thakur is saying, Mahavishnu is lying in the spiritual causal ocean. He's the subjective portion of Mahasankarshan, and then he entered as his own subjective portions into those universes. Okay. Now, in text 20 of Brahma Samhita, it says, by conglomerating all those separate entities, he manifested innumerable mundane universes, and he himself entered into the inmost recess of every extended conglomerate, Virat Vigraha. At that time, those jivas who lay dormant during the cataclysm were awakened. Okay. And Bhakti Saraswati Thakur, English is like so complicated. When you read it, it's like, what are we talking about? But here, focus on this aspect that they are awakened. Now we talk to the jivas, right? At the end of the creation, what happens? They enter into the body of Karnadaksha Vishnu. Now, when the Mahatattva is actually manifested, the jivas actually are impregnated into it. So we have the Mahatattva and all the jivas are there, right? But the universal shell is not yet formed, right? Now, after the energy of the Lord is entering, right, through Kali, the goddess Kali, is actually entering time aspect into each one of the 23 elements, then they'll start mixing, and then the universal shell is actually formed. Now, all living entities before this are in the Mahatattva. So those living entities, they are actually divided into all these different universes, right? So all entities are together in Mahatattva, then they get divided into all these different universes. And then the Lord himself will, and this this entire universal shell for 1,000 celestial years, it just lies on Karana ocean, right? And then the Lord actually enters into each one of them as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So when we talk of the state of being awakened, so the jivas, when they are in the body of Karnadaksha Vishnu, until they are actually divided and enter into one universe, they are still in a dormant state. But when Karnadaksha Vishnu enters into each universe as Garbhodaksha Vishnu, then they are awakened. Just like when we're sleeping, like especially like if you're in a temple, if you're in Brahmacharya ashram, the Guru will come and wake you up. Wake up, sleeping soul. Time for Mangala Arati, right? So similarly here, the Lord himself as Garbhodaksha Vishnu is actually awakening all the jivas, right? That happens only when the jivas enter into each universe, and then Garbhodaksha Vishnu is manifested. Then they are actually awakened, right? So that's that. And then this text number 35, Ekopyaso Rachaitam Jagadanda Koti, yes, Shaktirasti Jagadanda Chayaganda, Andantarastu Paramanu Chayantarasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So he is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between the potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primal Lord whom I adore. Right? So Prabhupada actually quotes this verse in the purport, right? And he basically explains it slightly, elaborating on the explanation that Bhakti Saraswati Thakur is giving. And Prabhupada explains in his own words, saying that how it is first of all Karnadaksha Vishnu. He enters into each and every universe as Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and then from Garbhodaksha Vishnu who is manifested Shirodaksha Vishnu. And it is this Shirodaksha Vishnu who is the Paramatma in the heart of every living entity, and at the same time it is this Shirodaksha Vishnu who is who enters into each one of the atoms, right? Ekopyaso Jagadanda Koti, right? So yes, Shakti Rasi Jagananda Chayanta. So Andantarastu, every atom, Paramanu Chayantarasna. This, it is a Shirodaksha Vishnu who is actually entering into every atom of matter. Right? And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying the wonderful activities of the material nature are all due to Lord Shri Krishna. And thus he is the final, ultimate cause of all causes. Right? So when you're reading all this information, finally, we may say, oh, such a technical portion. How is it relevant to me? How is it relevant to me? And then if you actually see, and then we'll talk of further like the life as in a body, we'll see every aspect of our existence, every aspect of this entire material creation is only possible because of the mercy of the Lord. right? We said, unless the Lord glances upon, unless his own energy enters into all the 23 elements, nothing will happen. So who is finally the ultimate cause of all causes? Sarva Karana Karana. It is Govinda. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Anadir Adir Govinda. No other cause, right? Ultimate cause, Sarva Karana Karana is actually Govinda Krishna, right? So he is the ultimate cause of all causes. Text 3. I know it's a technical portion, but at least I'm hoping everyone is like following along, at least the process to a certain extent. Right? Okay, text 3.
Goddess Kali here is it's not is it Lord Shiva's wife or just the
One way, yes, because you know how we explain that the glance of the Lord becomes what? Actually, so it is Rama Devi, right? The consort of the Lord, Karnadaksha Vishnu. She is actually carrying the glance of the Lord. And she is actually the glance of the Lord. As soon as it comes towards the aspect of the material nature, the glance becomes Shambhu. Because the Lord does not directly come in contact with the material nature. Right? So we discussed this verse in chapter 5, that the Lord saw that, oh, I have so many potencies, so many wives. But this one wife, the Maya Devi, material nature, Prakriti, she is actually, like one way he's not enjoying with her wife. So she is actually separate or alone. And then he decides to enjoy with that wife. We discuss that in the purport Prabhupada says that, if a man, like the wife is there and the man is not, spending time with him, then the wife is feeling alone. So similarly, this Prakriti, she's actually feeling left alone, and the Lord decides to enjoy with her. But he does not directly enjoy. He just glances, and the glance actually becomes one way Shambhu. Right? Shambhu. And then when Shambhu is coming in contact with Prakriti, who is Prakriti? She's actually the same Durga Shakti, Durga Devi, who is actually consort of Shambhu. So the Kali is an aspect of that Durga Devi, right? Aspect of the consort of Shambhu. So that way they are all the energies of that Prakriti, even the aspect of Kali. That's why, like, even, when you see the form of Kali, like you have seen like the deity form of Kali, it's always like very destructive. She's holding a trident. And then, if you go to, even in West Bengal, like so many different temples having that form, right? And then in that form, many times she's keeping her feet on Lord Shiva. Why? Because she's so much in the mood of destructive that Kali Shakti is so, like we read in the previous verse, what? Bibrita. Bibrita means a destructive potency. And it is Urukramaha, so powerful that even Lord Shiva has to come and says, no, stop. By your Shakti, you're destroying everything. And finally, Lord Shiva actually lies down and she's like, okay, I have to stop. But otherwise, her potency is so powerful, it can just destroy everything. But it's all the Kali, the Durga Shakti. She has that aspect of Kali, the destructive potency. Okay. Next, number 3.
Sonu pravishto bhagavam cheshta rupena tam ganam bhinam samyojayam asa suktam karma prabodhayan.
Thus, when the personality of Godhead entered into the elements by his energy, all the living entities were enlivened into different activities, just as one is engaged in his work after awakening from sleep.
So Anu pravishtaha. Pravishtaha means to enter. Anu means after entering. So after entering, what is entering? Bhagwan Cheshta Rupena. Right? So the Lord's own Kriya Shakti, which is actually the aspect of Kali. Right? So that aspect of Kali, after entering, then what happened? Ganam. All the jivas, including demigods, what happened to them? Bhinnams, which were separated, they samyojayam asa. They engaged in work, and just like suptam karma prabodhaya. Just like if someone is sleeping, then if someone comes and wakes you up, time to get up, time for Mangala Arti, time to chant your rounds. As soon as they wake up, then immediately feel like, okay, enlightened. right? So similarly, just like someone who's sleeping and then he's actually awakened from the sleep to engage in work. Similarly, this Shakti, when it was actually entered, this Kali Shakti entered into the 23 elements, then the demigods, who were praying to Karnadaksha Vishnu that unless you actually empower us, we cannot do this part, the creative function, they actually became awakened and they were ready to actually act. Okay. Right. So Prabhupada in the purport makes the point that every jiva remains unconscious. So I talked about this. So as soon as after the aspect of dissolution, right? So we are here, and if we don't go back home, back to Godhead, then when this entire material universe is dissolved at the time of destruction, then we enter an unconscious or a dormant state, right? And then we'll stay in that dormant state until we enter into the body of Karnadaksha Vishnu. Well, if it's the end of the day of Brahma, we'll enter into the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, right? Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And then we'll be in the womb of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And then next time when Brahma wakes up, then again we will pass through the stem of the lotus, and then Brahma will assign us to wherever we are in the 14th planetary system based on our karma. But if the entire universe is annihilated, then we'll enter into the body of Karunadaksha Vishnu, right? But as soon as the dissolution happens, we enter into an unconscious or a dormant state, right? And then Prabhupada makes the point. So this entire cycle is going on again and again and again, right? So there are how many dissolutions are we talking about? One is dissolution of this material body, right? So after 60, 70 years of our existence here, then this material body will be dissolved. Then what happens? We enter into a dormant state just for a few months until we get another body, right? That is first dissolution. Second dissolution is what? At the end of the day of Brahma. So at the end of the day of Brahma, then we actually again enter a dormant state, but then we enter into the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Second. Third dissolution, at the end of the life of Brahma. Then we again enter dormant state, but we actually enter into the body of Karunadaksha Vishnu. Right? And this entire cycle is happening again and again and again. And when we enter into the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, then we are dormant for how long? 12 hours of Brahma. The entire night of Brahma. And how much is that? 4.3 billion years, right? Something like that. Isn't it? Yeah. I think 4.3 billion years. Because we are 432,000 is Kali Yuga. Then one entire cycle, right, consists of the 4 yugas. One Divya Yuga is 4.32 million, right? And then that multiplied, right? So it's like 4.32 billion years we are actually dormant. Imagine the jiva. Like now is an opportunity. This lifetime we can go back home within a matter of like 30, 40 years. Like how my Guru Maharaj is, repeatedly he made this point. Just give this one life to Krishna. Just give this one life to Krishna. It could be like 20, 30 years of just focus on Krishna, take up Krishna consciousness with a full heart, give Krishna to others. That's it. We can go back. We have the blessing of having the most fortunate association of Srila Prabhupada. How fortunate we are. We have the ISKCON society. Everything is there. But if we miss this opportunity, then we don't know where we'll come back in the next life. And then if we miss that opportunity, then we could go on and again enter this entire cycle, come again and again and again. And Bhutta Prajayati, again and again. Right? So when we read this entire thing, entire process, then we can actually. So Prabhupada in the purport is actually making the point that every material creation is actually a chance for us to get liberated. And along with that, having this opportunity of being in this material world, we have this opportunity, and that is the proper Vedic wisdom. So by the Vedic wisdom, we can actually understand who we are and engage in devotional service, and then we can go back home, back to God. But if we have unfinished desires, right, then the entire cycle will take place. The Lord will awaken us at a particular time, and he'll remind us that, oh, last time you at the end of the dissolution, either of the body or of the universe, you had a desire to buy a Tesla. So now I'll get you a new body and you can get that opportunity. It could be like how Prabhupada in a class, I mentioned that one class, he starts off by saying that even if you have one material desire, Krishna is so kind that he'll give you another body, and then at one time he'll remind you, oh, last time you did not get this toy. So now I'm giving you a new body, get your toy, try to enjoy. And Krishna himself is reminding us of all this. So when we are awakened, which we are talking of right now, we are awakened by entrance of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. He actually awakens us and reminds us, oh, these are your material desires. You can continue, try to fulfill them. I'm giving you this opportunity. So it's all based on desire. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, therefore, what needs to be changed? Our desires needs to be purified. If our desires are purified, then we are on our way back home, back to Godhead. Right? So, okay. So we'll continue. Mate, you have a question?
So Prabhu, how is that Krishna, because Krishna cannot hear matter or material, right? So how does he know our material desires?
He does. I mean, how we say Krishna in the heart as Paramatma. He knows the desires of the jiva even more than what the jiva knows. And how is it? Bhagavad Gita actually explains. Just like you may have a nice flower. It is at a distance, but you can actually smell the fragrance of the flower. Right? So we are coming directly in contact with the flower? No. The flower is at a distance, but you can still smell it. Right? India flowers, not US flowers. US flowers have no smell. Kali Yuga flowers. But you go to Vrindavan and Mayapur, so you have Mahagalan, and for days you can smell it, right? So even though you're not directly coming in contact, you can smell the fragrance. Similarly, the Lord in our heart as Paramatma, he can actually, just like that, know all the desires of the jiva, material desires of the jiva. And Lord Paramatma, Shirodaksha Vishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, they are all knowing. So they know the desires. So next time they again awaken us and say, oh, this is your desire. And you can try to again fulfill. Okay. So Prabhupada in the last sentence, he says, when his desires are trained in the transcendental service of the Lord, his life becomes perfect and he's promoted to the spiritual sky to enjoy eternal awakened life. Eternal awakened life. So when the Lord is actually awakening us, what is he awakening us to? So there are different kinds of awakenings. Right? He is awakening us saying that, oh, in your dream, this entire material exists in a dream like that. In your dream, you wanted to enjoy this and this. Here, I'll remind you. So you can have another dream where you try to enjoy so and so. But what is a real awakening? The real awakening is Jiva Jago, Gaura Chandra Bole, right? When the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is traveling and saying, Jiva Jago, wake up, sleeping soul. Or the spiritual master comes, right? Guru means heavy. And you say, what is this nonsense? Wake up from your sleeping state. Take up Krishna consciousness. This is the opportunity. Go back home, back to God. That is the real awakening. That is the real awakening. So here awakening, yes, awakening to fulfill our material desires. But what Prabhupada is saying in the last sentence, when the desires are trained in transcendental service of the Lord, his life becomes perfect. He's promoted to the spiritual sky to enjoy eternal awakened life. That is the real awakening. Right? Then we are situated in our original state where we can be engaged in transcendental service to the Lord. Right? That is our real awakening. Okay. Next 4.
Prabodha karma daivena trayo vimshaktiko ganaha prerito janayat swabhir matrabhir adhipurusham.
Yeah, translation, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When the 23 principal elements were set in action by the will of the Supreme, the Ginetic universal form or the Vishwarupa body of the Lord came into existence. Hare Krishna.
Hmm. So, Prabhuda, awaken, right? Prabhuda means awaken. So, awaken, right? Karma activities by Daivena. So, everything is happening by what? Daivena. Daivena means by the will of the Lord. Right? So, when all these 23 elements are awakened by the will of the Lord, then, and it says again, we see that Traya Vimsha Tikaha, right? Traya 3, Vimshatika 23. So 23 elements when they are awakened, then Ganaha, now they are combined, right? Now they are combined. And then Swabhihi, Matrabihi, Adi Purusham. Adi Purusham, they actually become manifested as the gigantic universal form. Okay. Now, one thing to point out in these verses, the first 10 verses, the way the sequence is given, they are not chronological. They are not chronological. Actually, if you see in Canto 2, Chapter 5, the same thing points are there, but they are given more in chronological order. But here it is not so in chronological order. Because now we are talking of Vishwarup, and this Vishwarup will actually form only after Garbhodakshaya Vishnu enters into the universe. And then the first incarnation of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the Vishwarup, or the gigantic universal form. Right? So if you see, the order is actually not so accurate here. Right. So anyway, so text number 4 here is actually talking of the universal form. So Prabhupada in the purport talks about this Virat Rupa or Vishwarupa is the gigantic universal form. It is not the eternal form of the Lord. Really, Prabhupada is saying this is just the material manifestation of the Lord. Because these 23 elements, they are combined and then they are manifested in this form of the Vishwarupa. So it's not an eternal form, it is a material manifestation of the Lord. And it's very much appreciated by whom?
By the impersonalists.
Impersonal and
Mayavadi.
okay, Mayavadi impersonalist. Okay. Like in the second canto, right? When Sukadeva Goswami starts speaking, right? There we discussed this Virat Rupa, right? And then we talked about like who meditates on this Virat Rupa. Like one is that it was mentioned. Yeah.
Neophytes.
Hermes.
And neophytes for sure. Neophytes for sure. But in that section, we discussed that how in that Astanga Yoga process, when you reach a particular stage, then based on the advancement of the yogi, either he meditates on Paramatma in the heart or he meditates on the Virat Rupa.
Jnanis.
Yeah, Gyanis, I mean, Gyanis, their process is neti, they keep denying this entire material elements. And yeah, I mean, Gyanis, it depends on how is their progress, because from Gyanis, they could come to Dhyana Yoga. From Jnana Yoga, they may be elevated to Dhyana Yoga and then meditate on the Paramatma in the heart. Or, it could go from Dhyana Yoga. So basically, in that second canto, if you remember the first chapter and second chapter of second canto, what do they say? The Astanga Yoga process at a particular point, what is the Dharana Ashray? You remember Parikshit Maharaj asked, who is the Dharana Ashray? Right? So there's Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranaya, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. Right? Oh, sorry. Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. 8. But when you come to the stage of Dharana, then Parikshit Maharaj asked, who is the Dharana Ashray? Then he said it could be 2. Those who are not so advanced, who still have material desires, they will meditate on the Virat Rupa. Those who are free of material desires, they will meditate on the Paramatma in the heart. So, anyway, so that was the point. So it is very much appreciated by the impersonalists or the neophytes or those who are doing Dhyana Yoga and they are not yet purified until they come to a stage of Dharana. They all, right? And Prabhupada also says it's manifested to Arjun just to convince impersonalists that he is the original personality of Godhead. It is very common, like even when you distribute Bhagavad Gita, there are many people, more than being attracted to Krishna as the chariot driver of Arjun, they like chapter number 11. Because Their understanding is that the Vishwarupa is finally the ultimate form of the Lord. And the manifestation of Krishna on the chariot comes from that Vishwarupa form. But that's not how we see Bhagavad Gita progressing. Clearly in chapter 11, Arjun says, if you think I'm qualified, please show me that form of yours. That form of yours. So who is coming from whom? The Vishwarupa is manifested from the personal form. Okay, okay, next, text 5.
Parena vishata swasmin matraya vishvasrigganaha chukshubhan yonyam asadya yasmin lokascharacharaha. As the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest.
Right. So, Parena Vishata. Vishata again means entering. Swasmin, Swasmin, yeah, by his own self, he actually entered. And Matraya, Matraya is the plenary portion, right? So this is plenary portion of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, which is actually manifesting as the Vishwarupa. And like the elements of universal creation, Ganaha, again, like combine or all of them are transformed. Asadya, Yasmin, right, into the planets, the movable and the immovable living entities. Right? So it is basically in this universal form that all the planetary systems are there. You remember this? We read how many times we have read this description of the universal form? And we read how the 14 planetary systems are manifested throughout the entire universe. So same thing, the point is said that all the lokas, chara chara, movable, immovable, are all manifested in that universal form. Now, Prabhupada makes a very nice point here in purport. He says, in us, we have this material body. As soon as the soul leaves the body, does the body continue to grow? Right? So even in the body of a baby, because the soul is present, the baby is growing into the form of a child, youth, and so on. Right? So there also it is the presence of the soul that is causing the transformation. Matter by itself cannot transform by its own. Right? So Prabhupada is actually making the point. Similarly, if you see this entire material creation, it is only because of the presence of the Lord that the universe, the elements are coming, getting manifested, the material universe is actually created, and by the will of the Lord, they will be destroyed at the particular time. Matter by itself cannot actually manifest this whole thing. It is only by the presence of the Lord. So similarly, because of the spirit soul in the body is actually expanding. Similarly, this entire cosmic body is actually increasing only by the presence of the Lord. Okay. Okay. Text number 6.
Hiranmaya sapurusha sahasra parivatsaran andakosha uvasapsu sarvasatvopa.
Translation: The gigantic Virat Purusha, known as Hiranmaya, lived for 1,000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him.
So, as I mentioned, it is not in the proper sequence in these verses. Now we already talked of the Vishwarupa, which is manifested when? After Garbhodakshaya Vishnu enters into each universe. And now we are going a little bit behind, and I mean back in the creation. And here it says the Hiranmaya, right? Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, who assumes this Virat Rupa, he says that lived for 1,000 celestial years on the water of the universe. Right? So if you see the 23 elements unmixed, right? And then they get the Lord enters through the element of Kali, right? The time aspect. And then the cohesive energy mixes these 23 elements and they form the universal shell. Now that universal shell, all the living entities are now there in that universal shell. And that universal shell is staying on the Karuna ocean for 1,000 celestial years. 1,000 celestial years. So that's the point here. Under Koshe, within the global universe, and then Pari Vatsaran. celestial sahasra. So 1,000 celestial years, this universe is actually on the Karanaksha Vishnu, and the living entities are within them. They are not awakened yet. The previous verse already talked of awakened. They are not awakened yet. But then Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters, and then they are awakened. And then the process continues. But for 1,000 years, the universal shell, with the living entities are lying dormant in the Karana ocean. Okay. So, Alright, so Prabhupada says all the living entities injected within the womb of the Mahatattva are divided in all universes with the incarnation of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and all of them lie down with the Lord until Brahma is born. Right? So you can imagine like the living entities, they are in the body of Karanaksha Vishnu, they come out, and then it's just like, sometimes in schools they have this. Okay, we have this total, all you students, you go to section A, you go to section B, you go to section C, and so on. And similarly here, all these universes are there, and imagine that all those jivas are together. And the Lord says, okay, this universe, you can go. You can go to this universe, you can go here. And he actually, all the living entities are divided into all these universes. And so that's what, so all the living entities injected in the womb of Mahatattva are divided in all the universes. And then after they're divided, then the principal says, okay, now section A, you have to have a teacher, right? So the principal is giving a teacher, and that is basically Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So the living entities stay in the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu until Brahmaji is actually born.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I don't know. Yeah, I have a question. Is it okay to ask?
Yeah, please.
So these universes are lying on the Karanaksha Vishnu. I thought they will be in
No,
the
Karana ocean. Karana.
right, Karana ocean, right? Oh, my bad. Karana ocean. So I thought they are floating like bubbles, right?
Yeah, but it is in Karana ocean for sure. Right? See, let me share my screen here. I've shown this image before. Let me show it again. Right. So you see this. So okay, so from top, if you see, that is the Brahma Jyoti, right? Brahma Jyoti comes, and then the Karana ocean, right, is actually dividing the Brahma Jyoti with the material universe. And it's on this side of the ocean that all the universes are actually in the ocean. Right? In the ocean. They're floating in the ocean one way, right? They're floating in the ocean. And then we say that inside each ocean, there is what? The Lord himself as Karanaksha Vishnu, he enters as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So we see him lying here. And from the womb of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, then the navel comes, and top of the navel is Brahmaji. And it is on this navel that this entire sum total of all living entities are there, which is that golden egg, which is known as Hiranyagarbha, right? Hiranyagarbha here. And the universal form is actually manifested along this lotus. So that's why we say the feet of the Lord represent the Patala Lok. The upper portion of the Lord represents the higher planetary system. So this entire universal gigantic form is manifested here, right? And then, Kshirodaksha Vishnu is manifested from Garbhodaksha Vishnu, who is the super soul in the heart of all living entities.
So Prabhuji, so Hiranyagarbha or Hiranmaya or Garbhodaksha Vishnu, all are the same?
No, one way the Hiranyagarbha is actually the sum total of all living entities, which is actually said to be the golden egg. So in this verse also it says Hiranyamaya. And Prabhupada, because one way they are non-different in the sense of what you said, that people, Karanaksha Vishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Kshirodaksha Vishnu, Virat Rupa, Hiranyagarbha, they're all one way the same manifestation, like they're just, expansions of the previous. But if you want to go in more detail, you can see that Hiranyagarbha is actually this golden shell which is manifested from Garbhodaksha Vishnu, which is sum total of all living entities. Okay, that's why it is golden, because it's sum total of all living entities. And then
Sorry, go ahead.
no, you can.
No, I'm kind of more confused. Hiranyagarbha, Hiranmaya. Hiranmaya is clearly Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So Hiranyagarbha, previously we read as Kshirodaksha Vishnu, correct? Or no?
No.
No. So both, all three, Hiranyagarbha and Hiranmaya and
So-
Garbhodaksha Vishnu.
Are the same? Yeah, one,
That-
yes. And one way, if you want to go more into detail, according to Brahma Samhita, it says Hiranya Garbha or Hiranyamaya is the sum total of all living entities. So jivas are already there, right? From before. We already said that how the principle is dividing. Oh, you students, you go to section B. So all those living entities which have entered into this universe, the sum total of all of them together is the Hiranyamaya or Hiranyagarbha.
Okay, but they're not in the active state yet.
As soon as Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters, then they are awakened. So they are in the universe, but they are suspended for 1,000 years. They are not awakened. And then Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters, then they are awakened.
Okay.
But aren't they on the navel? I thought you said that they're on the navel of the stem.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
isn't Garbhodaksha?
yeah, around the navel, the 14 planetary systems are manifest, right? So that's where the living entities are assigned to go. See, it is.
But I mean, like Garbhodaksha Vishnu is already there, right? Because you said only that they're there, but Garbhodaksha Vishnu hasn't entered yet.
No. As soon as Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters, they are awakened. So, see, if you go in the process, so 23 elements manifested, they are unmixed state, right? Okay. So first is manifestation of 23 elements, Mahatattva, Ahankar, etc. Then unmixed state, demigods, they offer prayers. Karanaksha Vishnu sees, hears the prayers of the demigods and sees that, oh, all the elements are unmixed. Okay, then he himself enters through his energy, cohesive energy, which is the Kali Shakti, and then the elements start mixing. And when they start mixing, then what is formed? This entire bubble here, where you have Mahatattva as the last layer, then Ahankar, then ether, air, fire, water, earth. Right? So coming through all those layers we see here, they are manifested together as this universal shell. Now the jivas are already there in this universal shell. As soon as the elements start, the unmixed, actually after the cohesive energy start to mix, then the jivas are already assigned to each universe. Right? And then the Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters into each universe. And for 1,000 years, it is just like that, right? And then after that, the creation, the rest of creation happens, because then Brahmaji is born, and then he does the task of assigning all the living entities to the 14 planetary systems. There's actually one more chart here. Let's see. Right here. Right. So this is a nice chart which actually gives step by step. So Karanaksha Vishnu, he hears the prayers of demigods, saw the creative function suspended, elements in unmixed state. Then what did he do? He entered his sent his cohesive energy, which gets all the elements together, combines, forms the golden universal egg. Right. Now the egg has formed, right? So golden universal egg, like a fetus with all the living entities, it resides in Kanana ocean for 1,000 celestial years. Right? Then Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters into each one of those eggs, right? And then he awakens the jivas, right? So even all the living, including the demigods, are enlivened as if awakening from sleep. So that's the verse we just read. Then the Garbhodaksha Vishnu's first incarnation is a Virat Purusha. And this Virat Purusha, so we have not discussed this. This is the next few verses, which explains that how the Virat Purusha, he actually subdivides into 1, 10, and 3. So that is the next few verses. But this is the flow. This is the flow. All right.
So where does Brahma come in here, this picture of this flow?
Yeah, so after the Virat Purusha, then Brahma is actually manifested on the top of the lotus flower. So it is after all this.
Hmm.
Yes. Right. So, and I had explained this aspect of Brahmaji also, and I don't want to go there. But, even there are different aspects of this manifestation of Brahma, right? So one is Chaturmukha Brahma, that is one Brahma. Second is this Hiranmaya is also sometimes referred to as Brahma, right? So, and it's too technical. Like after you hear all this, it's like, Krishna, I just want to, and then that's what the Maitreya Rishi, at the end of this chapter, what does it say? How can I understand the infinite? I am unable. How can I, like a small jiva, try to understand the infinite? And he concludes this chapter with what? All I can do is just come and offer my obeisance. That's it. That's how this chapter ends. It's like, how is it possible? Because he makes the point at the end of the chapter. He says, even Brahma meditated for 1,000 celestial years. And then what was his conclusion? I cannot understand the Lord. If Brahmaji, after 1,000 years of meditation, 1,000 celestial years, he comes to a point that I cannot understand the Lord, he's infinite, what hope is there for us to actually understand him? So up to our extent, and here there's another verse, which very, very nice verse in this end of this, Yatamati Yatashruti. Right? So up to our, whatever we hear, whatever we're reading in Bhagavatam, up to our intelligence, whatever we understand, we understand. And that's what we repeat and we say. And as we progress in our bhakti, then we'll be able to assimilate more and more of this understanding of the Bhagavatam. Okay, so let's continue. We take 6, 7.
Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Uh, sorry. Prabhuji, like 1,000 celestial years is how can we is it like our times 1,000 years or it's a different?
Yeah, celestial years normally is considered as the years, years of the demigods, right? 1,000
Okay.
celestial normally considered there. So that, when you say 1,000, that the jivas, this universal shell is suspended for 1,000 celestial years. Now I'm thinking at this time, who is manifesting? The only person, I mean, the Lord is there, but beyond that is this sense devatas. So it is 1,000 years of these sense devatas because they are the only ones who are manifested at this time. Not even Brahmaji, the sense devatas. And then later on, the other set of demigods. Last class I had mentioned there, like 2 sets of demigods. One demigods which are already manifested who offer the prayers. Second set which are actually born from Brahmaji. Right? So they are talking of the demigods which are manifested before Brahma. Their time, their 1,000 years. That's very, very long time.
Thank you. Prabhuji, one more question is like you mentioned God will fulfill the desires, unfulfilled desires he will remind us, but certain desires even we don't want to fulfill, like we know that that's not good for us, but how about that, Prabhuji?
Yeah, there are certain desires in our heart that we know it's not good, but we are still holding on to them. So Lord will remind us and say like, oh, you're holding on to those desires. I mean, the point is, if we are actually letting go of those desires, then we are getting purified. But we may have certain desires and we know they are not good, but we don't let go of them. We still keep them in our core of our heart. Either we don't have the spiritual strength to actually let go, or we are just our attachment to something, some other material thing is so strong that we are not willing to let go. So the Lord will remind us and say, you are holding on to this garbage, I'll give you back your garbage. Oh, sorry, Mati. Arundhati Mati, you may have to unmute yourself.
Oh, you said that desires even in the dreams, we have to come back. Right, Prabhuji? Whatever we know.
What are our dreams? Our dreams is just manifestation of the images of
Desires.
mind. Right? Our mind accumulates all these images, and the dream it just like combines them, puts them together. But how are this combination happen? It's all on our desires. The desires are there. The desires are what gets manifested in our actions, in our thoughts, everything. It all starts from our desires.
Yeah.
The desires, that line, what did Prabhupada say? Our desires have to be purified by transcendental loving service.
Thank you.
Okay, text number 7.
Savai Vishwasrajam Garbho Deva Karmatma Shaktiman Vibhabhajatmanatmanam Ekadha Dashada Tridha.
Hare Krishna. Translation: the total energy of the Mahatattva in the form of the gigantic Virat Rupa divided himself by himself into consciousness of the living entities, the life of activity and self-identification, which are subdivided into 1, 10 and 3 respectively. Hare Krishna.
So this concept of 1, 10, and 3. So see, this gigantic Virat Rupa. So we have talked of after Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Savai Vishwasrajam. Vishwasrajam is actually that gigantic Virat Rupa, right? So that Virat Rupa, Garbha, which is a total energy, right? Total energy, it actually divides himself. It divides himself into, if you see a Sanskrit, it says Deva, Karma, Atma, right? So Deva referring to a living entity, Karma, activity of life, right? Atma referring to the self. And this Shaktiman, the Lord full of potencies, divided himself into Ekada, Dashada, and Trida. Ekada is 1, Dashada, 10, Triyada, 3. Right? So what is this 1, 10, and 3? So Prabhupada explains in the purport. The Deva or the Jiva, the consciousness of the living entity, right? Consciousness of all the living entities, that is the aspect of the Jnana Shakti. Right? The same consciousness of the Virat Rupa is manifested in each individual, and that's the same, like it's only one. I mean, consciousness is what? It's a symptom of the soul, right? And soul is qualitatively same as the Lord. So there's only one consciousness. So that is the one. So Deva, Jiva, that is the consciousness. Now, what is the aspect of 10, Dashada? So the activity of the consciousness is actually divided into 10 aspects. So Prabhupada in the purport actually says, the activity of consciousness is performed through the air of life, right? The prana, right? So the airs of life are called prana, apana, udana, vyana, samana, right? Also Naga, Kurma, Krika, Krikara, Devadatta, and Dhananjaya. So what is all this? What does Prabhupada say? Yeah. Actually, in the next purport, in purport of text number 9, Prabhupada explains what is all this. Right? So we'll just go a little bit further in purport of 9. He's saying the main air passing through the nose in breathing is called prana. Right? So when you're breathing, the air that goes in, that is prana. Then second thing, the air that passes through our rectum as evacuated bodily air is called apana. Second kind of air. Then third, the air which is inside our stomach, which actually, you eat a lot of prasadam, you burp, that kind of air is actually known as samana, right? So Prabhupada says that air which sounds as belching or burp, that is samana, third. Then the air which passes through the throat and the stoppage of which constitutes suffocation is called udana. So when someone is like actually suffocating, like, pressing your neck, that air which is actually stopped is udana. Udana, right? And the total air which circulates through the entire body is known as vyana. Then subtle, so more subtle than these 5 airs are the airs which actually facilitate the opening of eyes, mouth, etc., which is known as naga. The air that increases appetite is known as krikara. Right? So before Sunday feast, we can pray that the krikara increases in our body. Right? So the air that increases our appetite is known as krikara. Then the air that helps contraction is known as kurma. The air which helps relaxation by yawning. The morning you yawn. What is that air? Devadatta. And then the air which helps our sustenance is known as Dhananjaya. So amazing. I mean, normally we just, modern science just considers everything as just air, oxygen, carbon dioxide. But see how our science, every aspect of air, the air which we are yawning, how that is different from the air which is actually when you are burping, the air that is going, breathing, prana, right? The air which is through our neck, that's a different kind of air. So 10 aspects of life air. Right? So that is the Dashada. So Ekada is what? The consciousness, which is the same. Dashada is these 10 ayahs. Right? Okay. And then what is Trida? The 3 aspects. Right? The 3 aspects are basically the consciousness divided into 3 modes of self-identification according to the proportion of purity. So it's all based on consciousness. The consciousness itself is Ekada, right? The consciousness to do activity, you have these life airs, which is Dashada. And then the consciousness, when you are identifying with the consciousness according to the proportion of a purity, then that is 3. And what is that? Adhyatmic, right? So when someone is identifying with the body and the mind, that that consciousness by which we are identifying with the body and mind, that is adhyatmic. Right? The identification with material products, right? How we say, oh, I am my car. I mean, it doesn't make sense to say, but when you buy a new car, you identify yourself. I am this car. So identifying with material products, that is adibodhik. And with our consciousness, if we actually identify as ourselves, as the Lord has actually put me in this position to do some material affair. And who has this kind of identification? The demigods. Right? So demigods, their consciousness is, yes, Indra, he actually, sometimes he forgets, often he forgets. But what is his position? I am the king of the heaven, but I have been assigned by Vishnu to actually manage the material affairs. So as soon as the jiva, the consciousness identifies, oh, Lord put me in this position to do something, that already is the start of the purity of consciousness. And that kind of identification is known as Adidevik. Everyone understand? The consciousness itself is based on how it is identified, the division is there into 3. If you're identifying with the body and mind, adibodhik. If you're adhyatmic, you're identifying with material objects, adibodhik. And if you're identifying yourself as a servant of the Lord, at least starting, then that is adidevik. So that is 3. Everyone, are you following? Yeah. 1, 10, 3 concept is okay. 1, 10, 3. It's all on consciousness. So consciousness is 1. Then to do activity, there's 10 life airs. And third, when the consciousness is identified with different aspects, is divided into 3. Okay.
Prabhu, coincidence is Dhananjaya's conch shell is Devadatta.
Yeah. His conch shell is Devadatta. And Devadatta is the air that does what?
Yawning air.
Yawning. Yes. I don't know if there's any connection because Arjun is known as Gudakesh. He's the one who's called.
Gudakesha, exactly. How is having yoni?
Ankaral.
I don't know if there's any connection there, but yeah. But Devadatta and then the last one is Dhananjaya. Right? Devadatta and Dhananjaya. So Devadatta is the conch, name of the conch of Dhananjaya. It's interesting. Okay, so that is the 110.3. So who is expanding into this 110.3? So,
Garbhodakshay Vishnu.
so here Pati is saying, serve by who? Vishwasrijam.
Virat Purusha.
Yeah.
Yeah, Virat.
Right, so Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Virat Purusha, and this Virat Purusha is manifested as 110 and 3. Right? So Deva, Karma, and Atma. So Deva is the living entity, right? That is one consciousness. When that karma, activity of the consciousness, karma is there, then it is the 10 life pairs, and then the Atma here referring to the identification. Right? So hence the Sanskrit is Deva, Karma, Atma. Okay, Deva, Karma, Atma. Okay, text number 8.
Esha Yashesha Satvanam Atmamsha Paramatmanaha Adyo Vataro Yatraso Bhutagramo Vibhavyate. Vijay Matani.
Hare Krishna. The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the Supersoul. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation which thus flourishes. Hare Krishna.
So this gigantic universal form is the first incarnation and plenary portion of who? We talked about that, right? Whose first incarnation is so it says Parama Atmanaha, but who is that Parama Atma? Garbhodakshay Vishnu, right? So Garbhodakshay Vishnu is expanding as the Virat Purusha. So the Parama Atmana is referring to the Garbhodakshay Vishnu. And then it says this is the first incarnation. He is a self of unlimited number of living entities, right? So it is that Lord, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who will manifest as Kshirodakshay Vishnu, who is in the heart of every living entity, right? So he is the self of unlimited jivas, and in him rests the aggregate creation. So if you see, the Sanskrit says Bhuta Gramaha and Vibhavyate. The whole material creation is actually flourishing only because Andantarastu Paramanu Chantarasa. The Lord, as Kshirodakshay Vishnu, has entered into each and every atom. Otherwise, nothing would actually function, nothing would actually flourish. Okay. Prabhupada in the purport makes a point that how the Supreme Lord, he expands into two, Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, right? So Vishnu Tattva, the personal plenary expansion, and Jiva Tattva are the separated, minute expansions, and hence they are also known as the marginal energy. Okay. Next text number 9.
Sadhyatma Sadhidaivascha Sadhibhuta iti tridha Virat Prano Dasha Vidha Ekadha Ridayena cha.
Hare Krishna translation. The gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10, and 1 in the sense that he is the body and the mind and the senses. He is the dynamic force of all movements by 10 kinds of life energy, and he is the one heart where life energy is generated. Hare Krishna.
So we discussed this 110. So the 110.3, they were mentioned in verse number 7, but now they are explained in this verse. Right? So they're explained. This is represented by 3, 10, and 1. There. So there it was 110.3. Here is explained in the reverse order, 3, 10, 1. Right? In the sense that he is a body, mind, and senses. He is the dynamic force of the movements of 10 kinds of life air. That is the life airs. And he is the one heart, that consciousness, where life energy is generated. Is a one consciousness. And then in the purport, Prabhupada actually makes a point. The complete central force is generated from the heart by the Lord. The complete central force is generated from the heart by the Lord. So who is that? Who is generating that central force here in our heart? Is the Paramatma. right? Paramatma. So it's that one consciousness. So it's saying Sarvasya Chaham Riddhi Sannivisho Mata Smriti Jnanam Aponam Cha. It is that Lord in the heart who is actually giving us remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge. Right? Remembrance, forgetfulness, knowledge. So it is. So then Prabhupada makes a point. One who wants to forget him, the Lord makes all arrangement that the jiva can forget the Lord. But if one wants to remember him, immediately the Lord as Paramatma, he actually manifests himself as the spiritual master. The Chaitya Guru in our heart manifests himself as our Shiksha and the Diksha Gurus. As soon as the jiva wants to remember the Lord. Right? So if jiva wants to forget, then the Lord says, okay, Maya Devi, you please keep him covered. Right? Keep him under the curtain. Right? Maya Jamani Kachanna. Keep him under the curtain. But as soon as jiva says, no, I want to remember the Lord. As soon as jiva says that, the Chaitya Guru in our heart manifests himself as Shiksha Gurus, Diksha Gurus. Right? And then they Shiksha and Diksha Gurus, then they show us the way back home, back to God. Right? And then Prabhupada also talks about how the Lord gives remembrance and knowledge in the heart, right? So the knowledge, forgetfulness. Now, how does the forgetfulness and remembrance, right? These two things. So forgetfulness is you want to stay in Maya, the Lord actually keeps us. Remembrance could also refer to that when the jiva comes back after a cycle of dissolution, the Lord reminds him, these are your desires, try to fulfill them, right? But finally, the true state is the Lord in the heart gives us knowledge. And which is the verse in the Bhagavad Gita where we see the Lord gives us knowledge in our heart?
Dadami Buddhi Yoga.
Yes, Tesham Sata Yuktanam Dadami Buddhi Yogam. The Lord in our heart is giving us the knowledge. And then by that knowledge, he's actually telling us how we can go back to him. So he's giving that knowledge in the core of the heart. Right? And that actually happens. How does it say? Tesham Satata Yuktanam. Bhajatam Priti. When we actually engage in devotional service with Priti Purvakam, then the Lord in the heart, he actually speaks to us and gives us the knowledge by which we can go back to him. Okay. Now, text number 10. So this will be the last verse in this section. I'll stop at that point.
Maran Vishwasrujamisho Vigyapitam Madukshajaha Virajam Atapatsena Tejasaisham Vivrittaye.
The Supreme Lord is the super soul of all the demigods entrusted with the task of constructing the cosmic manifestation. Being thus prayed to by the demigods, he thought to himself and thus manifested the gigantic form for their understanding.
Right. So again, now if you see, as I said, it's not in sequence. Now what we're coming back to the original first verse, where it's saying the Lord. So it's one way the conclusion that Karandakshay Vishnu, he actually being thus prayed to by the demigods. Who was being prayed? Karandakshay Vishnu. Right? He thought to himself, and then he manifested himself as this Virat Rupa. So this is like one way the summary of the whole thing. Right? The Lord, hearing the prayers, he entered as cohesive energy, as Kali, time energy, and then the elements came together, and then Lord entered. Then that universal shell, 1,000 years suspended, Garbhodakshay Vishnu entered, and then universal form is manifested. So all that process is summarized in this one verse. Right? So Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about how the impersonalists, they are captivated by this universal form of the Lord. And so Prabhupada is making the point that how the impersonalists, they are captivated by this Virat Rupa. But he's saying those who are intelligent, they can understand that how, very simple point, that when the soul leaves the body stops functioning, right? So the reason that the body is growing is the presence of the soul. So similarly, this entire universe is functioning a particular way. That means there has to be someone behind it. Right? There has to be an intelligent designer, someone who's making things happen. And hence, those who are intelligent, they just turn to the Lord and they render service to the Lord. Right? And then Prabhupada also talks of the PhD. So there are so many definitions of PhD, right? So those who are doing their PhD, they say PhD stands for permanent head damage. Those are doing their PhD. But here, what does Prabhupada say? He translates PhD as plow department. Why plow department? Plow means like, like plowing the earth. Because the PhDs, those so-called PhDs, they, just like the plow, they are plowing out something. They are doing some work. And they are expecting that just by us digging the earth, we'll be able to know that who is the creator. That is their expectation. That we'll know the entire creation process just by our digging, just to find out, oh, this is so and so. It's not like that. That's Dr. Frog philosophy. We'll come to that also. The last few verses of this chapter, Prabhupada just talks again and again in every purport of Dr. Frog. Dr. Frog is that frog in the well, right? And another frog from the Atlantic Ocean came, and he's talking to this Dr. Frog. He's saying, I came from that body. It is so vast. He said, and this big hole. No, my well is so big. There cannot be anything bigger than my well. No, it is much bigger. Okay, maybe 3 times bigger. And this Dr. Frog is like, in Prabhupada in the lecture, he talks about it. He's popping his son, maybe 3 times bigger, And he said, no, more than that. What, 10 times bigger? Then he's actually growing in his size. 10 times bigger? And then, no, much bigger. And then what happens? He just explodes. That's what Prabhupada says. Like, that's a sign that Prabhupada says. Dr. Frog is like the scientist philosophers. They actually just say, they compare the entire creation to their understanding and say, oh, we know this little aspect here, one tiny thing. And this is the entire material creation they expanded from this tiny understanding. But, we are just reading this entire aspect. The only way to understand this is when we actually hear this knowledge from the realized personalities. By our digging the earth and find, oh, this is so-and-so property, what knowledge can we get? We'll just be like the Dr. Frogs. Right? So Prabhupada says the Lord can reveal himself only to a person who is submissive and who engages in devotional service. Otherwise, there is no way to know the Lord. So that concludes our first section of Bhagavatam, of this chapter. So let's see, any comments, questions, any points up to this?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I like what you said then. Chitta Guru expands himself into Diksha and Shiksha Gurus as soon as we say that, Krishna, I want to remember you all the time.
Chaitya Guru, it's very nice. Okay. Anyone
Hare
else?
Krishna.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I like the point. The real awakening is eternal awakening. Jiva Jaga, what you said.
Yeah.
To engage in the transcendental loving service of someone.
I mean, like
Yes.
in Adi Gadadhar Prabhu was making the point, right? And last week he was here. He was saying that how he had to drive with some family, and he used to go to work and they used to be in the same car. And then the high school girl, 10 years old, every time before, 10th grade, every time before going to school, Father, you need to stop at Starbucks because I need to get a coffee just to wake up. Just to wake up. And Prabhu was making the point, like, we wake up from sleep and still we are asleep. Still we are asleep. And similarly, we may wake up in this material world, but actually we are still asleep until we wake up to our true original form. Otherwise, it's all like a dream-like state. So a true awakening is when we actually take shelter of spiritual master, and hence that process is known as what? Initiation. Initiation means we are actually awakening and saying like, oh, now my eyes are opening. Right? So that is initiation. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I like the point where he mentioned that Maharaj said, just give this one life to Krishna. Otherwise, how many years we have to wait?
Yeah, thank you. Just that one point is so powerful. Just give this one life to Krishna. Like this is actually my Prabhupada told my spiritual master directly. He said, just give this one life to Krishna. And it's just one life. It's just like you have so many millions of lives. So even if it does not work, it's only one life. But if you actually give your one life, then you can attain perfection just in one life. Just give this one life to Krishna.
Rosie, like how to get that firm, yeah, that's really good, Prabhu. Like, but that conviction, like,
Like the main point is Prabhu, associating with those people who have that conviction. That's the key point. If you associate with those devotees who are fired up and who just consider this life, that's it, my goal back home, back to God. If they have that conviction, you associate with them, you will carry that mood and that energy will come into you. So that's why association is such a key. So we take that powerful association, and at the same time, we avoid association of, the people who are actually dragging us down and saying, no, now is the time to eat, drink, be merry. Now we'll just talk about football, cricket, we'll talk about this, that. Try to avoid, minimize that association and just focus on association of those people who have that conviction that, yes, this is my goal, this is my purpose, back home, back to God, in one lifetime. That is my goal. Whether that will happen or not, that may be a second thing, but our purpose should be determined. So main key is that association. That's the key. Like last weekend, we have his guest Adigadaya Prabhu. I was asking his schedule. He gives a class, like he's, he and his wife both are MDs, right? Doctors. And he works 7 days continuously. 7 days continuously, not 5 days, 7 days. And the next week he takes off. But 7 days he works, right? And every day he gives a class. He sleeps like less than 4 hours every night, And so pakka, like whatever time he sleeps, 3:45, awake, chanting the 16 rounds before starting the day. Like, that level of conviction. When you see that level of conviction, that determination, then we get fired up that, yes, see how much he is doing. I can do. I can try to increase my spiritual life and be determined. So that way, association is the key. Okay, anything else? Okay, so now,
Rosie,
yeah.
Those one point, those who are intelligent, they will turn towards the Lord and render the service.
Those are intelligent. They see the futility of this material nature. Actually, anyone who actually just opens their eyes and sees, I'm working so hard, but any moment, everything can be taken off. Then what's the point of working so hard? If you just see the futility of this material nature, it will open your consciousness that no, there has to be something beyond all this. And then by the mercy of the Lord, then we'll come in contact with gurus who will actually give us that knowledge. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah, so you explained very well, and the desire is like dangerous. We have any desire, then again new birth, new body, and all this like Lord gives. So that is very dangerous. So very, very careful.
I'm holding on to even the slightest desire could cause come back into this.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So next section, which is actually from text 11 all the way to 26. I'm going to explain the theme, and then we'll go very quickly through these verses, because then it's just like, purpose. There's hardly any purpose for these verses. But we have to understand the theme behind it. So up to this, where have we come? Universal form is created, right? The Vishwarupa is manifested. Now, from this Vishwarupa, Let me see. So from this Vishwarupa, right. So the way we understand this Vishwarupa is, okay, from this Vishwarupa, when, right, the different locations or different parts of the Vishwarupa are manifested, let's say mouth of the Vishwarupa is manifested, then what happens? That mouth being manifested, the predominating deity of the mouth is actually manifested there. Right? So the mouth of the Vishwarupa gets manifested. That is the first point. Right? So that is known as the Adhisthana. Adhisthana means the location where the organ is manifested. That is the first thing. Second thing, as soon as that location or the mouth, etc., is manifested in universal form, then the presiding deity is manifested. So even the mouth is controlled by a presiding deity, that is Adi Daiva. Right? Adhisthana, Adi Daiva. Right? Two aspects. Now, when the presiding deity is manifested, then the Adhyatma or the sense organ is manifested, which is from the mouth. What is manifested? Voice. Voice. Right? Now, when this Adhyatma is manifested, there is one more element, which is Adi Bhuta, which is from the voice. What does the Jiva can do? He can express himself in words, the action. Right? So the location of the universal form, first, form the location, predominating deity. Form predominating deity, the organ that is manifested. And then fourth one, the action that is associated with that. So everyone is okay with these four? So maybe someone can repeat. What are these four aspects? Because once we know these four, then everything else is just like a list. You know, up to text 26, we'll just go through the list. So someone can repeat. What are these? How is it manifested?
Adhisthana is the organ. Adi Daiva is the
Adhisthana?
gross, like the mouth, gross organ.
Location.
Okay, location. Yeah, gross organ. Yes.
Is the controlling deity, and Adya is the sense organ, and Adibhuta is the action.
Action, right? So these four, right? So if you see the next few verses, let me share my screen. Right. So, so from 10 all the way, so from 11 all the way to 26 is basically a list of this. So if you see text number 11 is going to tell what? The gross organ is mouth, controlling deity is fire, Agni, right? You can see my screen. And then the subtle sense organ is voice, vacha. And what is the function of this? We express oneself in words. Then next one, palate, talu, controlling deity Varuna, subtle sense organ tongue, jiva. And what is the function? To taste everything. Right? So similarly, this list goes on up to text number 26. Right? So let's quickly just read through the English translations, right, up to 26, and then we'll take a break. Everyone okay up to this point? We can continue? Okay. So let's see. Okay, let's do Sanskrit for 11 because that's just the starting of this. Go ahead.
So Sanskrit, okay. Ata tasya kati dhyayan yatananiha nirabhidyanta devanam tani me gadata shinu.
So yes.
Did you need to read my message?
Yeah. Maitreya said, "You may now hear from me how the Supreme Lord separated himself into the diverse forms of the demigods after the manifestation of the gigantic universal form."
Right. So now you touch Runu, right? You hear from me how the different demigods, right, diverse forms of the demigods, Devana, right, Nirabhidyanta. So this word comes repeatedly in the verses to follow. Nirbhinam, Nirbhinam, again and again, almost in all the verses up to 26, you will see this word. Nirabhidyanta or Nirbhinam means separated. Right? So universal form is manifested. From that, at the place of the mouth, then the separated demigod, is actually manifested. And how many Katida? How are diverse demigods manifested? From the universal form, that I'm going to tell. So you please hear from me. Okay. Text 1. Now we'll just do the English. And whenever we are doing the English, these 4 aspects you have to see. Right? We'll just see the 4 and then we'll go to the next. So I'll leave the chart in front of you. It's also there from Subodhini. Okay. So let's do text 1, English. And please, one by one, see which is your order and just everyone can keep reading.
Agni, or heat, separated from his mouth, and all the directions of material affairs entered into it in their respective positions. By that energy, the living entity expresses himself in words.
Okay, so one we'll do Sanskrit, we'll look at Sanskrit. So it says Tatsya Agnihi, right? So this is Sanskrit. Agnihi is what? The presiding deity there. Adi Deva is Agnihi, right? So that is first. Then he says Asyam Nirbhinam. We said this word Nirbhinam comes again and again. That means a separated, right? Lokapalha, the directors of material affairs, entered, okay? Vacha. So the next aspect is Vacha, words. That is what? The aspect, the action, right? The Adi Bhuta is Vacha, words. Oh, sorry. Vachaha is actually voice. So it will be Adhyatma. And then with that, one can do what? Pratipadyate. One can express himself. Right? So Vaktavyam is speech, and one can express himself through speech. That is the aspect of Adibhuta. Right? So the mouth is the Asyam, right? Asyam. Agnihi is a demigod. Vachaha is Adhyatma, and the ability to express oneself will be Adibhuta. Okay, next, let's go to text 13. So we can quickly go through this.
Yes, translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When the palette of the gigantic form was separately manifested, Varuna, the director of air in the planetary systems, entered therein, and thus the living entity has the facility to taste everything with his tongue.
Okay, so what is the place here? Who can say? Palette, right? When the palette, right, place. Then who's the deity? Varuna. And then what is the subtle sense organ or the adhyatma, the tongue? And what can a jiva do with that? The facility to taste everything. That's 4. Okay, next verse, 14. So maybe whoever is reading the verse, maybe if you can point out 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that on the screen also? But just look at the verse and point out 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
When the Lord's 2 nostrils separately manifested themselves, the dual Ashwini Kumaras entered them in their proper positions, and because of this, the living entities can smell the aromas of everything. So the place is the nostrils, and then the Devata is the Ashwini Kumaras, and the sense organ is the nose, and then the action is smelling aroma.
Okay, next verse, 15.
Shri Radhe Mataji.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Thereafter, the 2 eyes of the gigantic form of the Lord were separately manifested. The sun, the director of light, entered them with the partial representation of the eyesight, and thus the living entities can have vision of forms.
So what are the 4? Mother, you want to say? So 2.
So the
Mhm.
2 eyes. Yeah, the 2 eyes, the sun is the presiding deity.
Eyesight would be the subtle sense organ. And then,
Certainly.
and what can the jiva do with it? He can have vision of different.
Vision.
These 4. Okay, next 16.
Hare Krishna. When there was a manifestation of skin separated from the gigantic form, Anila, the deity directing the wind, entered the partial touch, and thus the living entities can realize the tactile knowledge. The skin is the organ, Anila is the presiding deity, and the touch is the what we feel it. I think I'm missing one thing.
Yeah, so
Uh,
how they have explained in Sumodhini, the way he says is charma, the gross skin is actually the organ, right? And then the subtle is also, he refers to that as the skin. Right? So he explains the subtle also as a skin, and then you told the remaining two. Right? So it's four. So both. Right. And then also the point here, yes, right? So yeah. Okay, next verse.
Hare Krishna. When the genitals of the genetic form separated become manifest, then Prajapati, the original living creature, entered into them with his partial semen, and thus the living entities can enjoy sex pleasure. So genitals are the gross organ, Adibhuta. Prajapati is the controlling deity, Adideva. Subtle sense organ, which emits semen, is the Adhyatma, and the sex pleasure is the Adibhuta
So,
activity.
we missed two verses, right?
Prabhu, what verse are we on?
Yeah, we missed two verses, Mate. I think Vijay Mate, you went to 19. We have not read 17 and 18.
Okay. 17, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
When the ears of the gigantic form become manifest, all the controlling deities of the directions entered into them with the hearing principles by which all the living entities hear and take advantage of sound. So, ear is the gross organ, Adibhuta. The Dig Devtas are the controlling deity, Adideva. The hearing principle is the subtle sense organ, Adhyatma, and to hear different sounds is the activity, Adibhuta.
Yep. Okay. So Prabhupada in this purport talks about how the ear is the most important organ because only it is through sound. We talked about waking up, right? How do you wake up? Through sound, right? Of all the things, like if you're sleeping and someone brings a big sign in front of you, wake up, nothing will happen. Someone has to really shout, wake up! You have time for Mangla Aarti, right? Like when I was in the ashram, like, the sound that used to wake me up is like, the Maharaj there used to come and play like kartals, into our room. He used to come and play loud kartal, and then everyone used to like jump up from bed. So it is through sound that we actually wake up. So Prabhupada says that the entire Vedic system of knowledge is received through sound, and hence sound is actually the most important organ. Okay, so now we don't need to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I think you have figured it out. So we'll just read translation. So let's go 18. Or if you want, you can still do 1, 2, 3, 4. But 18, let's go ahead. Who's next?
Krishna, when there was a separate manifestation of skin, the controlling deities of sensation and their different paths entered into it, and thus the living entities feel itching and happiness due to touch. Hare Krishna.
Right. So the skin is the organ, and then the controlling deity is actually trees.
Skin is the organ and trees personified, and hairs on the skin is the sense organ, and itching and happiness due to touch is the activity.
Oshadhya, Prabhupada says in the purport, and the deity is called Oshadhya. That's the trees. Right? Okay, next we did 19 already, 20.
Evacuating channel separately became manifest, and a director named Mitra entered into it with partial organ.
Where are we? Text 20, Mataji. Which verse are you reading?
Yeah, it's the same, Prabhu.
20, 20 only.
Yeah, 20 only.
Because 19 was already done by Vijaya Mataji,
Okay,
right?
sorry, go ahead.
So, 20.
Let's go ahead.
Yes. Okay. The evacuating channel separately became manifest, and the director named Mitra entered into it with partial organs of evacuation. Thus, the living entities are able to pass stool and urine. So, the gross organ is the evacuating channel, and the presiding deity is Mitra, and the subtle sense is a partial organ of evacuation, and the sense object or is the to pass
Plus two
to
then.
pass the truth.
Okay, 21.
21. Thereafter, when the hands of the gigantic form separately became manifested, Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planet, entered into them, and thus the living entity is able to transact business for his livelihood. So the organ Adhisthana, would be the hands. Indra is the demigod. The subtle sense organ is the ruler of the subtle sense organ would be Prabhu.
So it says Vartaya. Vartaya means that partial mercantile principles. You know, the principle by which the hand is actually working, that would be the subtle sense organ. And then what is the action? Is Vrittim.
Everybody is doing business work.
Yeah.
And
Okay, 22.
Thereafter, the legs of the gigantic form separately became manifest, and the demigod named Vishnu, not the personality of Godhead, entered with partial movement. This helps the living entity move to his destination. So the organ is the legs. The controlling deity is Upendra. The subtle sense organ are the feet, and the sense object or the activity is moving to a destination.
Right. So particularly Prabhupada clearly makes, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is making the point that this Vishnu is not the personality of God. It's a demigod by name Vishnu. Okay. 23.
Translation, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When the intelligence of the gigantic form separately became manifest, Brahma, the Lord of the Vedas, entered into it with the partial power of understandings, and thus an object of understanding is experienced by the living entities. So here they're talking about the intelligence and from the Brahma, the Vedas are there, and the object of understanding. Understanding is the main thing.
Yes.
For the living entities.
Yeah, so demigod is Brahma, who is the lord of the Vedas, and then Bodhavya means matter of understanding, and Pratipatti is understood, right? How to understand. Buddhi is the main part. Okay, 24.
After that, the heart of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered the moon demigod with partial mental activity. Thus, the living entity can conduct his mental speculations. So we have the heart, and then the moon is the presiding deity, and mental activity is the subtle sense organ, and with that we can conduct mental speculations.
So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying also this mental speculations and also determination, right? Action of the mind also includes determination. 25.
Thereafter, the materialistic ego of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered Rudra, the controller of false ego, with his own partial activities by which the living entity transacts his objective actions.
Right, so it is false ego.
False ego is and Rudra is the preceding deity, and who's the controller of the ego, and by which the action would be with transaction of objective actions.
Kartavyam, right? Objective activities with maybe fruitive activities, kind of that, based on our abhiman, right? So abhiman is the false identification of the sense of I. Okay, so even if you see, how did we start off in ahankar in that entire process? That was mode of what? Sattva, Raja?
Passion.
Ahankar here is actually by Rudra. Right? So Rudra controls this mode of ignorance, And then persons contacted by false ego are actually controlled with this aspect of Rudra. And 26.
Prabhuji, move your screen, forward it.
Oh, okay. Let me see, where is my next part? Yeah, I don't think I put the rest of the image, but yeah, I don't have the rest of the image. But we are in heart, right? Okay. Anyway, I don't have, you can see in Subodhini the rest of the
Yeah,
chapter.
it's page 57 of the Subodhini.
Yeah, I didn't put that in my notes, but yeah. Okay, please continue.
Hare Krishna, 26. Thereafter, when his consciousness separately manifested itself, the total energy, Mahat Tattva, entered is a conscious part. Thus, the living entity is able to conceive specific knowledge. Total energy.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So first thing, when you say Sattvam there refers to consciousness. So the location actually is Chitta, which is one part of the heart, right? So Chitta, consciousness, as one part of the heart. That is the location, okay? Then you said what second is Mahat Tattva, right? Second is Mahat Tattva. Then Chittena Amsena, along with this part of consciousness, and the action is specific knowledge that the Jiva gets. Okay. 27. Oh,
So Prabhu, consciousness is a part of the heart.
it says location of Chitta in one part of the heart. Right? So consciousness is actually, how do we define consciousness? It's coming from the spirit soul, which is seated in the heart. And from him, the energy that pervades all through the body, that is known as consciousness. But where is the origin? The location, it's a part of the heart. Right? Because the Atma is here, right? And from the Atma, the consciousness emanates. So,
Like here it says like thus the living entity is able to conceive specific knowledge. So how do we understand that, Prabhu? Specific knowledge?
So basically, it is a consciousness, right? The consciousness right now is what? Based on ahankar, right? False ego. But it is this consciousness which actually comes to a state of, oh, I am actually a servant of Krishna. So the knowledge can be obtained through the consciousness. When the consciousness is purified, that's when we obtain the knowledge. You know, it's not material knowledge. That which actually we use our material senses to understand. When the spiritual knowledge, when we are receiving, what is happening? It is actually touching our consciousness and purifying our consciousness so that we can give up that false ego and come to the point of like, oh, I am actually a servant of Krishna.
Okay.
That specific knowledge can be obtained in our consciousness. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. That specific knowledge refers to the spiritual knowledge. Right?
Spiritual knowledge of us awakening to the spiritual reality. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
So even the Sanskrit, we say Vijnanam. Right? So Jnanam, Vijnanam, that awakening. So it's not just theoretical knowledge, we are not this body, but understanding, coming to the Vijnana that I'm actually a servant of Krishna. I'm part and parcel of Krishna. Okay. 27.
Thereafter, from the head of the gigantic form, the heavenly planets were manifested, and from his legs, the earthly planets, and from his abdomen, the sky, separately manifested themselves. Within them, the demigods and others also were manifested in terms of the modes of material nature.
So from the Shishna of the universal form, the head, what was manifested? Dove, heavenly planets. From the Padbyam, the legs, the earthly planets, and Nabha, abdomen, that is the sky. The sky is actually manifested. And then, right, and also the Sura Adaya, the demigods and others, they are all manifested based on Gunana Vrittaya. Based on the three modes of material nature, all the demigods are also manifested. 28.
Hare Krishna. The demigods qualified by the super excellent quality of the mode of goodness are situated in the heavenly planets, whereas the human beings, because of their nature in the mode of passion, live on the earth in company with their subordinates. Hare Krishna.
So here it says, for the Sanskrit it says atyantikena satvena. By that goodness, when there is excessive goodness, that means, not just goodness here that may be in the material world, but excessive goodness, then one gets promoted to what? Demigod, right? So by atyantika satvena, excessive mode of goodness, then the deva, demigod, devam in higher planets. And then that's the first part. The second is dharam referring to the earth. And who is actually on the plane of the earth? Those who are in the mode of passion, right? Swabhena by nature, panayaho, human beings. So human beings in the mode of passion, they are actually on the earth. The people who are in mode of excessive goodness, they are demigods in the sky. Okay. Demigods in higher planets is Devam. And this is actually, right. So, Prabhupada refers to this section in the Bhagavad Gita, where it actually says, which chapter of Bhagavad Gita? It talks about the demigods stay in the higher planetary systems. Those are in mode of passion, they stay in the middle planetary systems.
14th chapter.
14th chapter. So let's see here. So if you see 14th chapter, talks about here. Yada satve pravriddhatu pralayam yati dehabrit tadotam Vidan lokam amalan pratipadyate. When one dies in goodness, he attains to the pure higher planetary planets of the sages. And then rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangeshu jayate. So basically one dies in passion, he takes birth in those engaged in fruitive activities. One dies in ignorance, tatha pralinas tamasi, then he takes birth in animal kingdom. Right? Okay, that's that. Then let's just do one more verse and then we'll take a break. Go ahead.
Text 29. Living entities who are associates of Rudra develop in the third mode of material nature or ignorance. They are situated in the sky between the earthly planets and the heavenly planets.
So saying, so tartiyena. So in previous verse we saw atyantikena satvena. Here it says tartiyena. That means excessive development of tamas, right? Tamas. Then what happens? Bhagavad Nabhim, the abdominal navel of the gigantic form. So we have come to a location is what? The navel, right? The navel of the universal form. And where is this navel situated? It says Ubhayaho Antaram, in between the sky, right? So in between the sky. So basically, right. So basically here is saying the Rudra Parshadam. Parshadam means the associates of Rudra. They actually, Bhagavad Nabhim, they take shelter of the navel of the universal form. And that Nabhim is the space, Vyoma, Antaram, between the two. What is the two? The two what we described in the previous verse. The earth and the heavenly planets. So what is between the earth and the heavenly planets? What is between Bhul-lok and Swarga-lok? Who knows? In the 14 planetary systems, what comes between the Bhul-lok and the Bhul-lok is where we are. And then there is something, and then the Swarga-lok comes. What is that? Something in between?
The 7 planetary system, Bhuvarloka.
Bhuvarloka, right? So Bhul-loka, Bhuvarloka, Swarga-loka. Then it goes to Jana-loka, Tapaloka, etc.
Jana-loka, Tapaya.
So between Bhuvarloka and Swarga-loka, what is that? Bhuvarloka. Right? You're getting it? Bhuvarloka is where we are. Above us, the next planet is Bhuvarloka. And above that is Swarga-loka. Right? So here it says it is in the space antaram between the two. Between the two, who are the two? In the previous verse, it talked of the earth and the heavenly Swarga-loka. So between that is Bhuvarloka. So this space, Prabhupada says in the purport, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami confirm that the Rudra, the associates of Rudra, they actually reside in Bhuvarloka. Right? Bhuvarloka, the one of practice. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Is it that the Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha in the Gayatri also it is mentioned, right?
Om, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. Right? So all these three are actually mentioned. Yes, it's in Gayatri Mantra also. Bhur, Bhuva, Bhuva Loka and Swarga Loka. Right? Yes. Okay, so let's stop here. So first section, what we do? We came to the entire aspect of creation all the way till universal form. Right? So if you relate it to chapter 5, we started off from where? Karandaksha Vishnu, right? Purusha Avatar. And then we went through the entire thing, came all the way to Garbhodaksha Vishnu, then universal form. Now in the universal form, then in different locations, different organs are manifested, and all demigods, human beings, everyone is manifested from the universal form. So that's what we are reading up to this point. Okay. Now we'll come back and we'll see what about the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, where are they manifested? And finally, how Maitreya Rishi concludes by making the point that, how can I'm incapable to describe these glories of the unlimited God. Okay. Everyone okay? Too tired? Technical knowledge?
Prabhu, can you please explain on this? Is it a linear, like straight line, like Bhur like is it a straight line, or could it be like a dimensional separate? Because how is that goodness and passion, and then in between is ignorance, So I think I could visualize that it could be a little, off track than the whole line, because you remember when we were reading Prabhu that the krama, how the person goes from krama mukti one after another. So from earthly planet it goes to Swarga, then goes to Janas, Tapas, Brahmalok, and the whole, right, Prabhu? So in that lineage we do not get to go through mode of Bhuvar, right? Because we don't have to. So person if wants to get delivered from Bhuvar has to come down to earth to go up, right?
Yeah. Finally, when demigods pray to come to earth to
Come to earth, right?
So see, like when you talk of the higher, it is not necessarily in terms of like geography, like okay, above the sky.
Right.
It is more in terms
Yeah.
of consciousness. Now, if we actually say, okay, it's in terms of consciousness, then how come the mode of Tama is actually higher than, So the point is said that these associates of Rudra who are in Tama, they reside there. But that does not necessarily mean that the entire planetary system is, in lower consciousness compared to our planetary system.
Mhm.
You understand the point? So as we are going, because we are in Earth, it is predominantly Rajas and Tamas. And Swarga Loka is a lot of Sattva, Rajas, right? Sattva and Rajas. Right? So in between, it is just a progression. But now it is pointing out those associates of Rudra who are in Tamas, they reside here. Like even in this planet, we have animals. And what does that 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita say? Those who are in mode of tamas, they take birth in animal species, right? So that's the point. So, even in that gradation within the different planetary system, that could be living entities in different modes staying on that planet.
And what about the other planetary systems beneath Prabhu, the Satala, Putal, Nova, Satal, and are they considered in earthly planet or?
Earthly, like, Atala,
Um,
Sutala, Vitala, Tala, Tala. So it is said that they are sub-Mediterranean planets, right? So basically, like in the 5th canto, it is described that even there's actually no sunshine in all those. Like even only up to Earth, you have sunshine. Below us, there's no sunshine at all. But then how is there light? They say all the light is actually reflecting from the gems, from the jewels. And that actually creates light in the lower planetary systems. So, yeah, so they are underneath. So if you see, anyway, maybe after a break, I'll just put up the geography. We can just see the geography of the Earth. We'll discuss in 5th canto. You can see all the different planetary systems there.
One Prabhu said all the lights there are neon lights.
Because they are reflected from jewel. Yeah, it's interesting that Bali Maharaj, he's in Sutala Lok, right? Sutala.
Prabhu, even how can a jewel reflect the light when it reflects the light when the sunlight falls on it, right, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Or will it glow by itself?
No, it is a reflection of the light.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the sunlight or because they say also because Ananta Shesh, the jewels on the hood of Ananta Shesh, I don't know if it is that light that reflects up. I'm not very sure of that point, Prabhu.
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. I think even I heard like jewels on the
Hood on.
snake, cobra. Yeah, that one actually illuminates the place in that.
Okay.
There is no direct sunlight, but that's what I
Yes,
read.
Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you, bro.
Prabhuji, one more question is like the associates of Rudra are in tamas. Like how do I understand? Like some devotees of Rudra, their stories are like so amazing. Like they sacrifice their lives to the service of the Lord Shiva. Is it the same? Rudra is the same. Is it referring to Lord Shiva or?
Yes, yeah, same Rudra, yes. So we see that even in the aspect of creation, when Brahma actually created Rudra, then what happened? Because Rudra was in that mode, we know like if you see the creation, like first, the four Kumaras. First it was, I think, ignorance, but after ignorance, four Kumaras, right? The four Kumaras, they said, okay, we don't want to procreate. Then Brahma became angry, right? And then when Brahma became angry, out of that anger came Rudra. And then when Rudra manifested, what was he doing? Because he was manifested from that tamaha or that anger, then he started destroying everything. And then Brahmaji had to say, no, stop. I have to create and you're destroying everything. So you stop, right? So we see that Rudra is predominantly manifesting that or controlling that mode of ignorance. And hence that is the function of destruction. So the associates of Rudra here are those who are actually assisting Rudra in this purpose of annihilation or destruction. So what is your point, Prabhu? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, Prabhuji, like I'm trying to correlate the associate, like the devotees of Lord Shiva. There are I heard some stories like their life, how they dedicated their life to serve the Lord Shiva. They give their life to him so dedicatedly. Like just trying to understand how are they in tamas, like.
Because
No.
Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter, what does it say? That is determination in the mode of tamas also. So even though they are in tamas, there may be determination to do something. Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter around text, what is it? 40, around that. It talks of determination in mode of goodness, determination of passion, determination in mode of ignorance. So they may have determination to do some kind of worship, but that determination is a mode of ignorance.
Prabhuji, if I'm wrong, Vamsingopal Prabhuji, are you trying to ask that all the devotees of Lord Shiva are in tamas, are in the mode of tamas?
Yes, Mataji. Like maybe I'm confusing.
So Prabhuji, are all the devotees of Lord Shiva are in tamas, are in mode of tamas?
It depends on the intention of their prayer.
Prabhuji, maybe it's talking about like the Sadashiva and the Shiva. Is that the difference one, right?
Yeah, Sadashiva and Shiva. I mean, Shiva is manifesting from Sadashiva aspect. But, like Arjun asked this question in the starting of 18th chapter about the worship in the three modes, right? And then Krishna explains that based on the faith of the person, 17th chapter, based on the faith of that person, he will be actually engaged in worship in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. Based on the faith of a person. So maybe there's someone who's worshipping Lord Shiva, but it depends on the intention. Mostly the intention is what? For satisfying some material things. Right? Because even the Vedas say, if you want a good wife, then you worship Lord Shiva, etc. So if that is the intention, this is more of passion and ignorance. And And those who worship Vishnu, they are predominantly in mode of goodness.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a quick break. So, it's already 9:19. Anyway, we have just okay.
Sorry.
Let's just take a quick 5 minutes break, and then we maybe do another 20 minutes after that. Okay, 9:45 we can end. Okay, so quickly let's take a break and we'll come back.
চুপ কর
One time, very loud.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so Hare Krishna. So there were a few questions. The question about the illumination of the lower planetary systems is actually in fifth canto, text number 24. It talks of subterranean heavenly planets, right? And in that it actually talks about how in the lower planetary systems there is no sunshine and time is not divided into days and nights. So it's 524:11, right? And consequently, fear produced by time does not exist. The gems on the heads of the great serpents drive away all darkness. Right? So it says the gems on the heads of great serpent that takes away all darkness. Right? So it is 527. 524:11. Well, okay. Then further it talks of Talatala, Mahatala. And Mahatala on this planet live very angry snakes with many hoods. Right? They are descendants of Kadru and so on. Then Vasatala, there is Diti, Danu, etc. etc. Anyway, it talks about that. The whole chapter 524 talks about that. Okay, so we have come to the point about so we talked about the last thing we talked about was the associates of Rudra, how they are in the Bhuvarloka. Right? Now in text number 30, we'll do at least till 34, like 4 verses we'll do. Right? So go ahead, text 30. Let's do a Sanskrit also for this. Right?
Mukato vartata brahma purushasya kurudvaha yastun mukatvad varnana mukyo bhur brahmano guruhu. I forget who's. Should I just read?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it you, Mataji? I don't want to.
Yeah.
So it's Divinity.
I think, yeah, I was supposed to read, right, Madhuri?
I think so. Yes, that's how it is.
O chief of the Kuru dynasty, the Vedic wisdom became manifested from the mouth of the Virat, the gigantic form. Those who are inclined to this Vedic knowledge are called Brahmanas, and they are natural teachers and spiritual masters of all the order of society.
The next 4 verses is going to talk about Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So first verse is talking about Brahmana. How are the Brahmana manifested? Here it clearly says, Mukhataha, from the mouth of the Lord, the Brahmanas are manifested. And how are the Brahmanas defined? And basically he says, Mukhatvat, right? They are actually inclined to Vedic knowledge. So those who are actually inclined to Brahma, Vedic wisdom, they are actually called Brahmanas. Right? So Brahmana is not by birth, but by qualities. That's a point that comes again and again. And those Brahmanas who are inclined, who are in favor of the Vedic wisdom, they become the Brahmanas or the Guru, the spiritual masters of the society. Right? So Prabhupada in the purport, and first of all, Prabhupada refers to Bhagavad Gita 4:30, which is that verse, Chaturvarnam Maya Shishna Guna Karma Vibhagasaha Tasya Kartaram Apima Vidhi Akartaram Avyayam. Right? So Chaturvarnam Maya Shishna, the 4 varnas are actually created by me, Krishna says, and Guna Karma Vibhagasa. and they are divided based on guna, not janma vibhagasa. Right? Guna and karma, based on their qualities and their activities. Then you have these 4 divisions. And right. So Prabhupada makes the point that the mouth, like all these 4, right? So they are all Brahmana, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. They are manifested from different parts of the body. But would you consider that the leg is not important? No. Every part of our body is important. Right? So similarly, all these 4 varnas are important, but considering these 4, the mouth is actually considered to be more important. Why? The Brahmanas are considered more important. Why? Because they give the Vedic wisdom by which all the others can function. Right? So if our head is actually not functioning properly, then we won't know how to use our legs, how to use our arms, etc. Right? So the head has to give the knowledge, the instructions, so that the others can function. So that's why the Brahmanas play an important role, because they actually give the Vedic wisdom by which the other 3 varnas can actually function. Right? So the main qualification of Brahmana is to be inclined to Vedic wisdom. Right? And then Prabhupada makes the point, a real Brahmana is a natural teacher or a spiritual master. Right? And Prabhupada quotes that verse, Sat Karmo Nipuna, right? Mantra Tantra Visharada, a Vaishnav Guru na syat, Vaishnava Sopacho Guru. What is the 6 karmas of a Brahmana? Who knows this? Sat Karma Nipuna. A Brahmana, a Vipro, right? A Brahmana is said to have Sat Karma.
Patan, Yajan,
Dana,
and I remember Dhyan. Yes.
Dana and Pratigraha. So first is what? Patan. A Brahmana is one who actually studies the Shastra, and then Pathan, he teaches the Shastra, right? Then he does what? Yajan. Yajan means he actually does the worshipping different deities, doing the Vedic rituals, and Yajan, he actually assists others in performing the ceremony. So someone may come and say, oh, Brahmana, can you do my so-and-so samskar? So he'll do the Yajan, right? So that's the Yajan. And then Dana Pratigraha, he actually accepts charity, right? And then he takes only what is required for his sustenance, and remaining, he does Pratigraha. Right? He doesn't accumulate. A Brahmana never accumulates anything. Whatever he gets, he uses what is meant for him. The remaining, he does Pratigraha. He donates it for good cause, for the other society. So, right? So these are 6 qualities of a Brahmana. Sat Karma Nipuna. Mantra Tantra Visharada. So this verse is actually saying that even if there's a Brahmana who knows these 6 karmas, Nipuna, he's expert, and he's expert at doing all the mantra and tantra. But if he's a Vaishnava, Guru na syad, then he cannot become a guru. But even if a person who is born in Swapacho, what is Swapacho? In the family of dog eaters. Even if a person is born in the family of dog eaters, if he's a Vaishnava, he can become a guru. So a Brahmana who is a devotee of the Lord, he can become a guru. But the Brahmana having all those qualities, but if he's not, a devotee of the Lord, then he can be rejected. And where is the story of a guru who was rejected because he was against Vishnu?
Bali Maharaj.
Bali Maharaj, Shukracharya, right? So he was expert, Satkarma Nipuno. But he said, Bali Maharaj, don't give him, he's Vishnu, he'll take away everything. But Bali Maharaj rejected that, right? So a Vaishnava can be a guru. And Prabhupada quotes, Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nasi, Shudra Kena Naya, Yei Krishna Tattva Veti Se Guru. So who is a guru? It does not matter if someone is a Vipra, like a Brahmana, a Sannyasi, or a Shudra. It does not matter. Yei Krishna Tattva Veti, one who knows the science of Krishna, that person is a guru. Right? So this is our philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right? So only a Brahmana who is a pure Vaishnava can become a spiritual master. Okay, so that is Brahmana. Now we'll go to Kshatriya, text 31. How the Kshatriyas where are the Kshatriyas manifested from? See the first word of 31.
Bahu.
Go ahead, 31.
Bahubhyo vartato kshatram kshatriyastat anuvratah yojata strayate varnan purusha kantaka kshatat.
Thereafter, the power of protection was generated from the arms of the gigantic Virat form. And in relation to such power, the Kshatriyas also came into existence by following the Kshatriya principle of protecting society from the disturbance of thieves and miscreants.
So yes, Kshatriyas, they come from Bahubhya, the arms. Shatram, right? Shatram means they have the power of protection. So those who have the power of protection, they are known as Kshatriya. Then Trayate Varna, they protect the other Varnas, right? So duty of a Kshatriya is to protect the Brahmana, the Vaishya, and the Shudra. Duty of Brahmana is what? To give knowledge to Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So so it is like remaining three. Brahmana gives knowledge to the remaining three. Kshatriya protects the remaining three. So both of them, Prabhupada stresses on this word anuvritaha. Anuvritaha means anuvrita, Prabhupada says, is important. It's significant. A person who follows the Kshatriya principles by protecting the society from kantaka shatat. Kantaka shatat means from the mischief of disturbing elements like thieves, etc. Right? So Kantaka Shatat, right? So he one who protects, then he is actually Paurushaha. Paurushaha means he is a representative of the Lord. So how is a Brahmana representative of the Lord? Because on behalf of the Lord, he gives Vedic wisdom to everyone. How is a Kshatriya a representative of the Lord? Because on behalf of the Lord, he protects the other Varnas. Right? So both of them that way can be represented. Paurushaha, that's why the word is there. They are representatives of the Lord if they actually do the task of protection. Okay, next verse. And then Prabhupada talks about how Maharaj Parikshit, he actually gave protection. And he gave protection to Praja. Praja not only includes the human beings born, but even the animals. Praja means one who takes birth. So even the animals take birth. So a king should actually stop. Even if he's a true representative of the Lord, will stop all animal slaughter. Because they are also Praja. He has to give protection to the Praja. Right? So that is a true king, a true representative of the Lord. Right? So a person who is supporting animal sacrifice, he cannot be a true Kshatriya.
Prabhu, sorry, Prabhu.
I was just making one point, the purpose and the purpose. Modern elected presidents cannot even give protection from theft cases. And therefore, one has to take protection from insurance company. Prabhupada makes that point in purpose. That now it's like so Kali. Anyway, I won't say much, but the people who are standing for presidents, they themselves are thieves. 91 court cases, and they themselves are like. So anyway, yes, Mataji. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's very interesting. See, like when the Kshatriyas are created, there is also a mention of miscreants and thieves. So that means it is obvious that the Kshatriyas are going to protect from a certain class, which is not going to be Shudras, which is not going to be Vaishyas. So,
Right.
like unintelligent class will also be there. That is why Brahmanas.
Exactly. Yes. One way we can consider everyone here is a prisoner, right? So there will be some people who are going to do mischief. There'll be everyone else who is ignorant. So we need Brahmanas to give the knowledge, and then Kshatriyas to protect. Okay. Okay. Just next verse 32. Let's just do Vaishya and Shudra and then stop.
Visho vartanta tasyorvor loka vritti karir viboho Vaishyastat udbhavo vartam nrinam ya samavartayat.
Translation, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The means of livelihood of all persons, namely production of grains and their disturbance to the prajas, was generated from the thigh of the Lord's genetic form. The mercantile men who take charge of such execution are called Vaishyas. Hare Krishna.
So the word Visho means of living by production and distribution. So Prabhupada makes an excellent point. He says that the main task of the Vaishyas is to produce grains, agriculture. And once the grains are produced, they need to distribute the grains. So Vaishya means agriculture. And for distribution of the grains, you need transportation. And transportation is that you need banking. So he's making the point that transportation and banking is just to actually distribute the grains produced by the Vaishnavas. So all these three actually come under category of Vaishya. So it's so nice to think that, yes, everyone needs food. So they are producing the grains, but to actually distribute, you need this. So everything is actually dependent on the main aspect of agriculture, right? So that is the Vaishya. And they are generated the thighs of the Lord.
Somewhere we read Vaishyas came from the belly of the Lord, right? Is it not?
Yeah, that was, I think, described in the second canto. Right? I think there it talks about the Vaishyas coming from the belly of the Lord. But here we can see the sense, right?
Here it says thighs.
Thighs,
No,
yeah.
actually in second 2.5 also it has thighs.
Yes.
So
We read somewhere.
I don't know if we saw it in 2.1. Let me see.
Because
No.
Prabhu, you mentioned that
2.1 also thighs.
because
Everywhere it is thighs. So 2.1 says thighs, 2.5 says thighs, 3.5 also is saying thighs. What
seems
is-
somewhere you mentioned that because I mean probably we are all on the same page, like because the Parchantile produces grains, food, so that is why it was maybe in the bellies of the Lord, like
No,
I think it's from Bhagavad Gita, Prabhuji.
could be.
Nothing.
Mhm.
Building.
Huh?
Yeah, but
Hello?
we have to refer.
And then like all the three references we saw here, 3.5, 2.5, 2.1, Kshatriyas are said from the thighs. Okay, we can search if someone find belly, we can also look at that. Okay, so here that was exchange of produce by banking and transportation. That is basically this. And then Prabhupada makes a point that Brahmanas are tax exempt. Brahmanas should be tax exempt. There should be no tax on the Brahmana. Because why? They are living just by some donations. They get the donation, they distribute knowledge. So Brahmanas, they themselves should be tax exempt. No tax on Brahmanas. So if you're a Brahmana, then no tax. And then Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, actually Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, they provide to the Brahmanas. So they should just take care of the Brahmanas. They should be exempt from paying tax. So Prabhupada makes that point clear. Okay. Next, last verse we'll do, 33.
Madhyam Bhagavato Jagye Shushrusha Dharma Siddhaye Tasyam Jata Pura Shudro Yadvritya Tushyate Harihi. Thereafter, service was manifested from the legs of the personality of Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious function. Situated on the legs are the Shudras who satisfy the Lord by service.
So it starts off with Padvyam. Padvyam is legs, right? From the legs who are manifested, the Shudras, right? And what is the main aspect of the Shudra? Shushrusha. Shushrusha means service, right? Service. They actually serve the other three varnas. So hence they are known as Shudras, right? Now, the important point here is Tushyate Hari. Whether we see a similar verse, Atha Pumbir Dvijasheshta Varnashrama Vibhagasa Swanististasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshan. So all these four varnas, when they are doing their occupational duties, it is for Tushyate Harihi, to actually please the Lord Hari. So we'll start up next week. We'll discuss this point about service and service attitude, and then we'll complete the chapter and move on to next chapter, next class. Okay. Chapter number 7. Okay, so thank you so much. Any final points?
I mean, not to consider any specific, Brahmana is better than the Vaishya, each of them are serving the other three, right, Prabhu? If you see, even knowledge, giving the knowledge is a service. They're serving others, like Sudras are serving other three classes. So nobody is higher or lower.
So that's exactly the point in this verse, which will be elaborated, that the principle of service is common to everyone. And that's how the service attitude to Krishna can be developed. So that's the whole key point. I was going to elaborate, but you mentioned this so nicely that, it's all of them. Finally, we have to develop our service attitude to Krishna. Now, this Varnashram is providing an opportunity, a system through which everyone realizes, oh, actually, I'm meant to serve the other three Varnas. Brahmana by giving knowledge, Kshatriya by protection, Vaishya by feeding, right? And Shudra is anyway service. So developing that service attitude is actually enabling us to finally develop a service attitude to Tushate Harihi, right? So service attitude is the key. So if there's a Brahmana, the Brahmana who actually gets puffed up with the knowledge and says, oh, why should I do that service? Better than that is a Shudra who is actually developing that service attitude. The final point is to develop our service attitude. And that service attitude in Varnashram finally comes to a point of service attitude to the source of who's created Varnashram, that's Lord Hari himself. Okay. Any other points before we end?
Prabhu, I was wondering, say, like last week we discussed the importance of concentrating, meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. And we are hearing how Shudras could satisfy the Lord by service coming out from the feet. It is the most glorious position to be, Prabhu, than to be, on the head and forget who am I, puffed up.
What does Bhakti Vinod Thakur say? Like, Arundhati Mataji, Kita Janma Hoa Jata Tua Das, Bahir Brahma Janme
Brahma Janma.
Brahma, it was actually at the head of the Virat Rupa. I don't want that kind of birth if he's averse to you. Better to have even a birth of a worm as long as I can serve you. The service is the key, developing the service attitude. Nice. Thank you. Okay. Any other points?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I like the point that anyone who is well versed in science of Krishna can be a spiritual master rather than a qualified Brahmana.
Thank you.
I also appreciate the point how everything is so personal. Like even our senses have a sense devata. That's like everything is so personalized, right? Like that we can in this Vedic understanding, it's not impersonal at all. Like every aspect, the Varnas are part of Krishna's body, like Virat Rupa's body. Everything is very connected. So it's very...
Thank you. That shows like even our opening of our eyes. There's like a life air which is actually controlling one of those pranas. Actually, life has a controlling opening of eye. Every aspect we are controlled. And still we actually say, no, I want to be independent. We are like so completely dependent, but just out of foolishness we say, oh no, I want to be independent. We are all completely dependent. And finally, declaring our dependence on the source of all these demigods, Krishna himself, is our true independence, is our true position. So, okay.
Prabhu, I had a question. And Prabhu, when we were reading the sequence of the sense organs and the demigods and everything, the eyes came quite after, like, so isn't on in sequence, or it is?
It is just the entire Virat Rupa is manifested and is saying, okay, this part, this part. Nowhere does it say like it's one after another, because the entire Virat Rupa is manifested. So everything is manifested at this part, so and so is actually happening. Okay, so thank you so much. So we'll end here. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namah. Thank you all for joining this morning. Thank you for your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you. Dandavat
So
Pranam.
much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Recording in progress.